Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RecoverCon podcast. I'm Gerald Watt, your host, person in long-term recovery. The RecoverCon podcast is a podcast dedicated to ideas, views, concepts that are worth growing in recovery. Recovery from substance abuse, such as drugs, alcohol, etc. I believe that as the person in recovery, it is my responsibility to find my recovery or to create my recovery. And sometimes that means going out of my way, doing what is uncomfortable. In fact, it often means doing what is uncomfortable. I've never found too much growth in things that are terribly comfortable. There is a saying, no pain, no gain. And it has proven 100% of the time to be correct for me. And so that is where we start from, looking at how people in recovery are going out of their way to make the recovery space better for themselves and others. Today, my guest is Laura Nelson of Sober Life Rocks, and I'd like to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited about this.
Awesome. So, are you in recovery? Fill me in. Who's Laura?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it that you asked it that way. So, I stopped drinking alcohol in 2020. And my story is one where I was warned my whole life by my dad, be careful because we have alcoholism in our family. We have a high chance of getting addicted. And I'm like, awesome. But I didn't know anyone in my life who was sober. I stopped drinking in 2020 because I had watched a TED Talk where she's talked about gray area drinker. And for me, that resonated so much with me because I had been battling with alcohol and addiction, but I didn't consider myself an alcoholic or in recovery. I just was like, I don't understand how I can be a mom and a business owner and a speaker and travel around the world and yet have this substance that's controlling my life. So I stopped drinking in 2020. My husband is in recovery, and I went to a lot of meetings with him, which helped the journey for me of seeing life on the other side. And I love that you ask, am I in recovery? Because I actually just did a video about this, that I think that the word recovery is amazing because if you actually think about it, recovery is recovered your life. Like you've recovered something, you got something back. And I think that we're all, anybody who's assess their relationship with a substance and got something back in their life because they've eliminated it or got rid of it or got it under control is huge. So yes, in that regard, I would say, yes, I'm in recovery because I have recovered something that I never even realized I had lost since I've been drinking for so long in my life. And now I can say I'm no longer drinking. Yes.
Okay.
That was a long story, but you started with recovery and I got really excited about that word.
And you should. It's an amazing word, and I think everybody is recovering from something. I'm recovering from the phone ringing. The interesting thing is just waking up in the morning is kind of damaging, right? It's just the act of standing up and walking out of your house. You are being traumatized. You are being impacted by the world, by other people, etc. And so I agree with you. I think everybody has some recovery going on at pretty much at all times.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up. I knew after talking to you last time we were going to have such a good conversation. I think it's before we even put our feet on the ground nowadays. Because we pick up our phones, and the second you pick up your phone in the morning to turn the alarm off, and then you look at the text or you look at the news or you see your emails, and before you even wake up, the world is in your head. You put your feet on the ground, and that's going to set the tone of your day for sure. So, and you said the hard stuff, like you got to do the hard stuff. I've actually changed it so I don't pick up my phone in the morning. I meditate first. I get out of bed. I start my day on the right mood before I let the world get into my head.
I'm in an interesting situation as somebody who has been in AA for a long time, a spiritual version of recovery. We are told that the first thing you want to do is you want to, welcome God into your life. Right. As soon as I open my eyes, I'm supposed to start saying my prayers. And I have found that in the last 6 to 8 months, it is increasingly hard to get God in there first. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I wake up and, my eyes open, and, first thought is, are the kids late for school? What are the people at work doing? Did that bill get paid? It's everything but, and I have to stop myself and say, wait a second,
Mm-hmm.
and try to let God into my day. And
Yeah, I think that the longer, so I went, and you might even know this. My husband said that this is like because I'm what they call spontaneous recovery, in the sense of, I one day woke up and said, I have to stop, right? And I had enough people in my life and influence and read enough books and stuff. And I'm an all in or all out person. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I'm all in or I'm all out. And so I was all into alcohol, and then I was all out. I'm like, I'm done. Now, that doesn't mean that the recovery part wasn't real. It was just I did it differently.
mhm,
But I realized after about 4 years that once I had gotten through the addiction part and I could live life, and I was doing life without having to get a glass of wine or worry, wishing I had that beer or whatever, then I realized, I woke up one day and I was like, but I'm still not happy. Right. Like the excitement of waking up in the morning. I mean, I still wake up and never regret not drinking. Like, that's not a thing. But then I was like, well, wait a minute, I'm still not happy. And then I had to actually work on me, right?
mhm.
Because I no longer had the bottle or the numbing, and now it's like, oh, and so some of the things that I'm doing, like you're talking about, is we have to consciously make sure we're doing these things for ourselves, because the longer it's been, the more you kind of get into the mainstream, and then we don't want that. We want to make sure that we're consciously making these decisions that set our days right or make us thankful. So I definitely agree with that.
I mean, it's a full time commitment.
Mhm.
It's. You said you're married.
Uh-huh.
Um, you don't just get married, come off of take off the dress, and you're just married forever, right?
Right.
You have to make a decision every day to remain married,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
To stay in agreement with that other person, to
Yep.
do the work that it takes. And it's the same thing with recovery. I've been sober now 17 years. However, um, day to day to day to day, I have to continue to make decisions that encourage my recovery. And
Mhm.
I believe me, I support all paths to recovery. When you said, you kind of excuse yourself, you're like kind of spontaneous. So like, no, be proud of that.
Right.
Um, for us, our organization, I one of the things I always, use as a motto is, I'll support you even if your path to recovery is that you go in the backyard and say magic words and spin in a circle. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not what bus you took, it's that you got there, right?
Actually, and I talked to a lot of people about this. We all had different stories that got us to the problem, whatever it is. We all have different stories coming out, right? And there's just, and that's great, because we're supporting those that are out, or those that are considering that they may have to get out, or drink less or whatever.
And you never know. And in fact, I've got a book coming out exactly about that. It's that, everybody can't go to the tables of a 12 step and pour their guts out and get sober. Some people, that just throws them back. And so,
Right.
what other paths are there? But anyway, that's all other stuff. So you told me your recovery story, but tell me the Laura story.
Yep.
How does Laura end up starting Sober Life Rocks?
So so like, I'm in the dental industry. That's my day job. And so I speak, I travel, I go to lots of conferences, I train teams. And so during that, my journey of like going to conferences and traveling was, first class on an airplane, free alcohol, sweet. Go to the airport, great. It's 5 o'clock at 6 a.m. Great. You want a shot with that beer? Sure. Go to the conference, walk in. And so it just became part of my lifestyle. So when I stopped drinking in 2020, I stopped January. Then the pandemic hit. So we shut down for, what we were going to 3 weeks or whatever it was supposed to be. And I'm
Right,
in
right. The
California.
3 hour tour,
Yeah,
Gilligan's
3 years
Island.
later.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching people drink more online, I'm at home, which thankfully was great, because, all my normal habits had changed because we weren't on the road. And so then when I got back on the road again, I'd go to conferences, and I'd speak during the day, and then I'd go to the event in the evening, and they'd roll up the black bar and we'd all stand around and everyone's drinking. And I'm like, one drink in, I'm like, well, this is dumb. I'm going back to my room because everybody's getting drunk around me. And for me, I'm an extroverted person. I just spent time away from my family to be here. I'm here to talk to others. And this is just kind of dumb. And so I thought I was the only one who was going back to my room, but come to find out as I started to talk to people, I wasn't. There's a lot of people who don't go to conferences because of the alcohol in the evening, or they go and they go back to their room early, or they avoid the evening events. And so I had an opportunity at a conference to be on a panel where I was talking about my sobriety and my sober choices. And I asked in the room, how many people in here are sober, soberish, or sober curious? And out of 125 women, like almost 20% raised their hand. But they raised their hand sort of hesitantly, like over their shoulder, like, and I knew one other, yep. And I knew one other person who at the time she was 15 years sober, and she was, had gone through AA, and she had kept her sobriety quiet because she had been advised halfway through her sobriety, sober years, you don't want to talk about it and let people know. And so she and I looked at each other and we're like, there's all these women in here who are sober, soberish, or sober curious, but we're sort of hiding it. We don't know about each other. And once you know somebody else is in the room, you no longer feel alone. We're like, what if we just brought light to this? Because we do think that there's a lot of people in the professional space that either hide their sobriety or hide that they're suffering, and they feel like everyone's drinking and they have to just monitor their own drinking. And so we started Sober Life Rocks for that reason. And then also the meeting planner came up to me afterwards and said, I have an event at my house tonight and I didn't plan any sober options. All I have is beer and wine and water. And there's like a quarter of my people here that don't even want to drink. I need better options. And so we started Sober Life Rocks to amplify or to help the professional world, right? So when you go to conferences, to know there's other people like you, and it doesn't matter. We don't care if you drink, we don't care if you don't drink, and we don't care what's in your cup. But let's just normalize the, especially in work settings, that opportunity. And then I wrote a book last year for meeting planners because also, if I'm going to show up to your event, I want better options to drink. Like, don't give me club soda with a lime in it. Like, if I'm going to hang out, I want to have options, and I want to know that there's options for everybody. So I wrote a book called The Inclusive Event Planner for conference planners to recognize that it's kind of like back in the day, vegetarians and vegans used to have to go to a special table to get their food, and now they get served with everyone else. I think that our meeting planners can do better. So that's been kind of the evolution of Sober Life Rocks. I'm one that likes to stand on a mountaintop and just, everyone's welcome, right? Anybody who's assessing their relationship with alcohol, stop drinking, recovery, AA not, 12 steps, spontaneous, doesn't matter. Our thing here is just to normalize sober choices. And then now we're actually having our first conference, which we can talk about. So it's kind of been an evolution of my trajectory, and then, building a community behind it.
It's really interesting. Our organization came from a somewhat similar place. I am a old nightclub promoter, and that's, where I kind of get my view of the world from. I've been putting parties together since I was in 7th grade. So everything for me, for the most part, is some form of a party. Mm-hmm. Right. And I agree with you that as a person in recovery, I was feeling excluded. Mm-hmm. I moved to this small town, and in this town, it pretty much runs on alcohol. Mm-hmm. The guy across the street invites you to his place, to watch the game. He means let's go drinking. He says let's go out on the boat. He means let's drink out on the water.
Right.
Let's go hunting. That's drinking with guns, right? It's all about drinking. And so for me as a person in recovery, I don't fit that. Uh-huh. And I don't feel like because I made a positive decision to change my life for the better, I deserve to be ostracized.
Right.
Right. I'm not the oddball.
Right.
And I go to a lot of your conferences, like you said, fraternity, conclave things, and 10,000 people, and I'm like standing there to the side like
yeah,
so I see the need for what you're discussing.
So let me give some examples of some of the things that I have found over the years, the year and a half we've been doing this, which is amazing. I have found that there's a good percentage of people who are not drinking at these events, but they're tired of getting the pressure because it's, like, why aren't you drinking? And are you pregnant? Are you in recovery? And what? So they just act like they are because they're like, it's just easier, right? A lot of them are not what they consider to be in recovery. They've just stopped drinking because it wasn't matching their lifestyle. It wasn't healthy for them, their fitness, their wellness, their religion, right? But the thing is if we all stand around and we put a lime in our drink and we just act like we're doing what everybody else is doing because we don't want to deal with the pressure, what it does, and what I have found is it does feel it's harder for those that are in recovery. Right. And so my goal is to, if we can normalize, especially at business events, that there are better options and that we don't have to act like we're drinking and you're not alone. It's going to help everybody as a society, right? Because there's a lot of people who are trying to drink less, just in general, like they're at a work event and they don't want to make an idiot out of themselves. So they are not wanting to drink, right? So why can't we have better options? And I have a story. I have somebody who's in our program, in our community, who is a dentist who has kept her sobriety, her recovery quiet because she's been worried about stigma and licensing and all of that. She joined our community and she was at an event, and at the event they had a mocktail bar or a zero proof bar because of Sober Life Rocks. And everybody made a huge hit out of it. They thought it was so awesome. They were taking pictures. She was like, I felt more included than I have felt in years because everyone was having fun with the different drinks. But she had another dentist who came up to her and said, the way she was talking, he said, sounds like you're in recovery. And she got all introverted. She says, no, I'm not. And so she came to me afterwards. She's like, I feel really bad. I should have said yes, and I didn't. And I was like, you know what? You're not supposed to be the poster child of this. I will be. It's fine. And he said, sounds like you're in recovery and it's not working, is what he said. And one of my friends
it's not working
because he could tell. And one of my friends who's very more humorous like you are, who's not in recovery, who just doesn't drink, she goes, I should have been there and said, sounds like you're a jerk and it's not, you're in recovery for being a jerk and it's not working, right? Like we can circle around everybody and just support each other when we actually feel like we can be seen and there's others who are there, whether you're in recovery or not, it doesn't matter. Whether we just shouldn't be putting alcohol as the first thing and the main entertainment for these events. Like, have the alcohol. I don't care. You don't care. You drink what's in your cup. Just let me drink what's in my cup and don't question me about it. Make it easier for me.
Right? I'm gonna play the devil's advocate. I don't know that guy was being mean.
Maybe not, but she was sensitive.
Right. She was certainly sensitive, but I think that might have been the key, is that were her recovery working, she wouldn't care.
Exactly.
You're right. She wouldn't care that he spotted it, and the interesting thing is how we meet so many people. Everybody knew you were a drunk.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody knew you were a drug addict.
Yeah.
Now that you're trying to get better, keep it quiet.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, yep. And there's so many things that this is, again, I think the idea of recovery versus people who just don't drink, right? So we get sensitive. And I talk about this. I do a lot of short videos and stuff on this, where somebody, if you were to come to me and say, do you want a glass of wine? Let's just say you were, and I was like, no, thank you. And you're like, are you sure you don't want a glass of wine? It's a nice bottle of wine. You're going to be like, oh, they're pushing it on me and everybody. Well, let's take it out of wine. Let's do ice cream. If you're like, do you want to scoop of this ice cream? And I'm like, no, thank you. You're like, are you sure this ice cream's really good? I bought the best brand. It's the exact same thing. But somebody who isn't in recovery, who just doesn't drink for health or they're no, thank you. I really don't want it. And it may not trigger them, but somebody who's in recovery, that could be a little triggering. And it's not the person's fault necessarily that's offering you the wine the second time or the third time. It's just take it out of the context of the alcohol and put it into a piece of candy, right? And so there's a sensitivity issue, I think, for people who are especially newly in recovery, learning how to, live well. Yeah, exactly.
It's shame, and the guy that's offering the wine for the 18th time has no value attached to that whatsoever. He just is trying to be a good host. Your glass is empty.
And or he doesn't want to drink alone, and that's his story, not yours, right? Like
I think you even reading too much into that. But
yeah,
that's fine.
yeah,
That's
right.
fine. Let's leave him as neutral as possible.
Mm-hmm,
He's
mm-hmm.
just got 8 bottles and he doesn't want to drive them home.
Right,
Right?
exactly. Right.
Right? So he's just trying to get rid of them. But he's only in that moment.
Uh-huh.
I, as a person in recovery, I'm in this moment. I'm in when I was 8. I'm in
Yep.
when I was
Yes.
3 and my grandfather, you know what I mean? I'm like
Yep.
so many, I've got so much other stuff that's being put on that instant,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it's all inside my head.
Yep.
It's 100% inside my head.
Yep.
You know, and that's one of the problems that we have when we're out in the world is that we're carrying years and years and years of baggage
Right.
that nobody else knows is there,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's like when my son comes home and somebody, he's like upset and he's like, somebody called me fat. Well, are you fat? No. All right, well then don't worry about it, right?
Right.
But imagine if he had been chubby when he was a child,
Right. Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
And
And
that's where one of my things with the meeting planners is trying to get them to see that there is a percentage of their people who come to their events who, if we could just do better and offer better options, because we don't know what's in their head. We don't know their story. We don't know how this could be very triggering, right? For people. So,
but the assumption is we do. The assumption is we're all on vacation. And when I'm on vacation, I like to lose my mind. So everybody else probably does
yeah.
the same. So
Uh-huh.
that's what we're going to do. I'll tell
Uh-huh.
you, interesting. I go to my fraternity's conference every other year. This will be the first time I haven't been in about 10 years or more. Um, and there's one of the guys is running for national office, and I'm part of a group of guys that are pretty involved. And so I'm in this thread, and a text came through, and it's like, you need to donate to the election fund, and it's $100, and for the $100 you'll get this bottle of bourbon, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't want the bottle of bourbon. I want the
Right.
guy to win the election, but like
Right.
that, it just was.
Well, and when I talk to meeting planners about this, so conferences, the attendance of conferences are down just in general, like, right? And so all they know to do is throw more alcohol at the problem. So longer happy hours, higher, better bars, whatever. We have a new issue that they're using old school tactics to try to fix the
Mhm.
attendance. And so in your case, like, you just want to donate to the guy to help him, but they're trying to throw a sweeten the pot a little bit. And
Right,
it's like,
right.
but we don't need alcohol, just sweeten the pot. You don't need to bring alcohol to a baby shower. You don't need to have alcohol at every, like, it's okay. Alcohol's fine. It's not going anywhere. We just don't need that to be the enticement to do the thing. People are going to do it or not do it if they want to.
So what does Sober Life Rocks? What's your suggestion? I'm throwing a baby shower, and I've got some people coming. What's your suggestion?
Well, so I have a book on this, and it's a free download. So you can go to Sober Life Rocks, and on the top it says book, and you can download it or buy it. And there's a bunch of things to it. Actually, in the book, I only have 2 sections that actually talk about alcohol in the bar. The rest of it's around the actual event. And a lot of it is, first of all, before you even have the event, the baby shower, the conference, the 10 people or 10,000 people, is the invitation to the event to know that it's a safe space for anybody, right? That you're going to have cocktails and mocktails, that you're going to have, that it's not just going to be around a bar, that there's an actual event to go to. The second thing is when you get there at the event, you don't have to make the focus around the bar. Like, it doesn't have to be around happy hour. You can have meetups over coffee, or you can have an event where you go someplace where there's advertised non-alcoholic options. Like, have the meetup be safe space for the minute they walk in. Then the actual drinks, have things that people want to drink. Don't give us, Coke and Sprite, or my least favorite thing is a mocktail that's in a pitcher over to the side, or like everybody else is drinking nice drinks and I got like the sippy cup in the corner, right?
Right.
So actually have inclusive drinks that match what everybody else is drinking at the event. That's just adult. You can have an adult beverage without alcohol. That's right. And then making sure that there's something else going on besides the alcohol. So many times we use the alcohol like as the main event. And if you have the alcohol, if you want to have it, but have other things, games, networking things, ways for people to interact, axe throwing, whatever. I don't know if I'd mix axe throwing and alcohol, but you know what I mean? Like karaoke, scavenger hunt, like do a thing that helps people, because what we ultimately want with our events is we want people to go home and have memories and connection.
Right.
And so build that first, and the alcohol can be a sideliner. That's fine. Just don't make it the main event.
I agree 100%. And we actually have a sober bar that we take out from time to time. We set up a yellow tent basically at the local festival that our town did, because I got tired of being, the only guy standing there drinking a Pepsi while the whole town is drunk and bumping into me, spilling beer on me.
I love that.
So I agree 100%. And what we've seen is some of the local bars are starting to pick up on serving mocktails and such. Before we get too deep and lose track of time, tell me about your conference coming up in January.
And I love that, because that was a good segue right into it. So since we've been in this space, my business partner and I, we have talked to so many people. I spoke to you a couple months ago in recovery, and they're podcasters, they're speakers, they're writers, they're influencers, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. So many people who are in the sober space, but that have not gotten to know one another, right? Like there's 8 or 10 people over here, and then there's 8 or 10 people over here. And there's a lot of people trying to do things. I know somebody who's trying to get into the employment and the employer area in Maine, and there's somebody trying to do it in Oregon, but they don't know about each other. And so what we are doing with Sober Life Rocks is we're hosting the first ever influencer conference, and it's called Amplify Sober Voices. And there's 2 reasons for it. First of all, so that we can collaborate and connect across the different platforms, because we believe that more people who know about each other in the sober space can help amplify the word and the message, like get it out to the community. But then also we want to help people grow their influence. And so we have a lot of people who are writers, but they want to be a speaker, or speakers who want to start a podcast. And so we're going to have throughout the day how to grow your influence, how to become a speaker or grow your speaking, podcast and writing. So we are bringing everybody in the sober space under one roof, and we're having it at PodFest. So PodFest is a podcasting conference, and ours is going to be a 1-day conference within it. So if you're anyone in the sober space, whether you are an alcohol-free brand, or you're a writer, or you're newly sober, and you're going to make a difference in your community, you have things to say, you have a story you're going to tell, you have, a breaking out of the mold, and you want to come get connected to others who feel the way you do, Amplify Sober Voices in January is what we're hosting for that.
So that's pretty amazing.
You'll be there, right?
I'm planning on it.
Yeah.
You guys tell me, do you need me to get up and ramble for a minute?
Well, the one great thing about this is we think this is going to be like a thought leader conference, because there's so many people and we just can't wait to see the collaboration and the connection, the conversations that are going to happen, because we're putting all the right people in the right room together, right? In the same room. And there have been a lot of conferences, recovery conferences to help people when they're sober and get sober. But we don't think there's been one from anyone we talk to that's specifically on the thought leaders, the people who have gone first and want to continue to help amplify this message. So everyone in the room is definitely a thought leader.
There's a reason why. You understand that the traditions of 12-step almost work against thought leaders.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed at the resentment that we get when we step out and we try to speak into the NIMBYism of
Yep.
of of stigma, and
Yep.
so um, it's almost like the proverbial crabs in a bucket.
Yeah.
Your own people in recovery are pulling you back, like, hey, be anonymous, be anonymous, I
Yeah.
wasn't anonymous when I was drunk.
Yeah. Actually, and there was a, because my husband's been in AA for a very long time. My business partner is AA, and it was hard for her when she was finally like, you know what, you're not putting me in the corner anymore. I'm not going to sit back here and I from day one, I started the first day I was sober, I went on TikTok and was like, okay, you're doing this journey with me because I don't want to have to go through day one again. And I learned from other people, right? So I think that there was a true, of course, need in the past, but stigma's changing. The world is changing. And the more that we can support each other and the more we can support this message, I think we can help people before they hit rock bottom. We have a lot of people who talk about wellness. It kills me right now. They're talking about wellness, they're talking about yoga, they're talking about breath work, but they're not talking about their relationship with alcohol or their relationship with drugs. And it's like, don't talk to me about wellness if you're going to go home and drink a bottle of wine at night to numb your feelings. Like alcohol and drugs should be part of this conversation, but we've got to bring this conversation. We got to bring this to the conversation. So I think times have changed, but I agree with you. That's part of the reason why it's time. We believe it's time to amplify it.
Well, it's amazing. There are hundreds of recovery-based podcasts. I mean, just the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. So many people, because this is probably the biggest part of those people's lives. I know it is for me.
Uh-huh.
For
Uh-huh.
me, my recovery comes first.
Uh-huh.
There's, I lose my recovery, I lose my business, I lose my family, I lose
It's
everything.
one of the top 3 things that I'm most proud of in my life, for sure. So why shouldn't I share it? Why shouldn't I talk to
Exactly.
others about it, right?
Right.
Mhm.
If you and I happen to find ourselves sitting on a train next to each other and we can discuss whatever we want,
Uh-huh.
probably going to talk about recovery.
Uh-huh.
For me.
Yep.
But again, the world would prefer, or not the world, the recovery world, status quo would prefer, keep it to yourself. Don't talk
Yep.
about it.
Or just bring it in here in our 4 walls.
Right. And the thing is, then it never spreads. And
Mhm.
then those same people say, well, I went to the conference and I felt like an outsider.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
As opposed to me, I live my recovery out loud. Half my clothes have recovery on them. And,
Uh-huh.
I am known in my community as that recovery guy. Um, I don't even get offered drinks anymore.
Well, and I think this is what is the current situation is that I think, and I mentioned this earlier, I think people are suffering in silence or they're sober in silence.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people who are sober right now who didn't go to a 12-step program, didn't walk into the rooms of AA, aren't making TikTok videos. They're not, but they're sober for their own reason and not connected to other people, right? And they have the same pressure everybody has, or they're suffering in silence. I was one of those people. I remember beating myself up because how could everybody have alcohol under control and I was the one hiding it? I was the first one at the bar, the last one at the bar, waking up hungover in the morning. It must be me.
Mhm.
Why can't me sharing my story is to help another lady who's in the same situation that I'm in to be able to feel you're not alone because I know what that's like. I remember what it's like and I know what life is like on this side. And why wouldn't I want to share that with other people? And yes, there was a time and a place where stigma was real, but I think we're beyond that and the more we can help each other and elevate and amplify this, we're going to help so many other people. So I'm thankful and blessed that AA is what it is, and I have lots of wonderful people in my life who believe in AA, and that's amazing. And keep doing it because that works. And then I also have lots of people who never went to AA and are sober and very proud, and that's amazing too. Like we said, we all had our story that got us here, and as long as we're all getting out, if it's time to get out or assess it, great. More power to you.
Yeah, I'm not dogmatically attached to the ideas of any particular path to recovery. Everybody, like you said, has their own way out.
Mhm.
And as long as they get there, then so be it. But we also have to be aware that we can't demonize
Not at all.
alcohol or drugs. I am not a temperance society. I am not
Right.
smashing people's barrel of whiskey, right? I know that Gerald, was not using drugs and alcohol properly.
Right.
There are people that can, and if those people can go and have 2 or 3 and it loosens them up a little bit, and they're a little more social, so be it.
Right.
I wouldn't.
Right.
Eventually I'd be on my 9th or 10th.
Mhm.
I'd be making inappropriate
Right.
comments. I'd be slurring. I'd be sloppy. I'd be sick. All the things.
Right.
That, if it's, your gas needle and you want to be here, I'm going to end up way over there, right?
Yeah.
So that being the case, I love what Sober Life Rocks is doing. It so follows what I believe in, which is that we have to create a way for people to learn how to connect to one another without the social lubricant. Right? Because in the end, I did not travel all the way to Dallas or Memphis or Orlando to tie one on.
Right.
I traveled to connect with people in my industry or in my fraternity or in my family, etc. And the interesting thing is how many times people come back and the stories they tell of their trips was not how they connected with people. It is all the chaos that came from their misuse of their social lubricant. So
I was the last conference I was at, I had the opportunity. It's the one that started Sober Life Rocks. She had me up again, and I was talking about Sober Life Rocks and what had happened over the last year and a half. And a lady the next day came up to me who I'd never met before, and she said, "I have to thank you." And I said, "For what?" And she said, "I didn't drink last night because of you." I had never met this lady before. I didn't know her there's 100 and some women in the room, but I gave her the okay not to drink. Does she have a problem? What does she drink at home? How much does she drink? What's her? I don't know. But because I stood up and said, there's a group of us who are choosing not to drink for our reasons, and you're not alone. She didn't even come up to me at the conference the next day and said, thank you. So that is like, we're all dealing with our own stuff. Right. And societally, alcohol has just been, a thing, and it's okay for us to say it doesn't have to be a thing. It's not a thing for everybody, right? And some people choose to have a glass of champagne once a year. You do you. That's amazing. I'm not. That's my decision, your decision. So I just love that story because it was like she just got the okay. I told her subconscious it's okay not to drink, and she didn't drink, and she was proud of herself. Good for her, right?
And maybe it lasts forever. Maybe it doesn't.
Right.
It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
What is more important is that she realized, wait, I could be at a conference and not be drunk.
Right. Yep. And I've heard so many stories of people who, in our personal life, we can choose who we hang out with. You can choose not to go hunting with, I love that you said that, guns with beer or soccer with beer or whatever, right? You could choose that. But a lot of times in our professional life, we don't get those options. You've got to go to the wine dinner. You've got to pay for the bill. You got to stand around the networking hour. And so that's really where, for us, it's the professional side of things where, like, again, we keep it quiet. And then there's this pressure of alcohol. And there's a lot of people who, relapsed, or I call it a data point, where they were fine in their personal life. And then they went to that one conference and their boss said, just have a drink. And next thing you know, it's 6 months later and they're back to drinking because of a work thing. And it's like, we can do better there too. And that's really where I want to continue to spotlight this until we get to a point where it is less about the drinking at the professional events.
Agreed. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up there, Laura. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much.
This has been great. Thank you for all that you do too. I appreciate it.
Let's keep the conversation going. Give me more information on Orlando. I would be interested in participating. So
awesome.
For everybody at home, this has been the Recover Calm podcast. We've been talking with Laura Nelson of Sober Life Rocks and Amplify Sober Voices. Please, 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 again, as I say every episode, you're not alone. There's people out here doing the work, doing things. Get in where you fit in. And if you need to reach out, you can certainly reach out to us, Hawk Valley Voices of Recovery, at 779-707-0151 from anywhere in the world. You can, I'm sure, reach out to Laura through Sober Life Rocks. Any number of people are there. And if those don't work for you, call a neighbor, call the police department, call your local hospital. You do not have to suffer alone. This disease of addiction is bigger than just whether you're drinking or using drugs. It's more about, are you in a good headspace? Are you handling the pain of life? Are you handling the things that are going on in life well or not? And if you are not, then please seek out help, because we need you. So, Laura, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate this. This was great.
Absolutely. All right. Everybody at home, take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon.